Portfolio, the shoot, pre-production. To come up with the idea for our film, we sat down as a group and brainstormed some ideas for the kind of genre that we wished to work with. After multiple ideas, we all decided that we liked the idea of making a horror/thriller film, as we are all fans of the genre. After this, we started to form a rough idea of a plot, and after a few different ideas, we narrowed it down to a father, Alan, and his daughter, Grace, who come together after the loss of the mother, Julia, to clean out their old house, but whilst doing so, a dark secret is revealed. After we had the basic outline in place, we began to storyboard some ideas of how we thought the film would look. My role for the film was camera operator, so myself, along with the DOP, did the storyboarding for the film. Characters. The first main character of our film is Grace Thompson. Grace is a caring character and is the character of the film that the audience can relate to. Her mother has just passed away and she is not too close to her dad, so this incident leaves her in a vulnerable position. Originally, we had planned for the mother to die in a car crash and Grace to get a phone call receiving the news, which then caused her to meet up with her father, and then the story continued. However, after the first weekend of filming, our actress cancelled on us, so we had to find a new actress. However, at such short notice, the only actress we could find was on crutches, so we had to change the story so that Grace was in the car with her mother and the crash has put her on crutches. Although at first this was an issue for us, in the long term it became beneficial because we were able to make the character of Grace even more vulnerable. It also made her seem powerless against her dad and made her less mobile so she could not get away from him. The second main character is Alan Thompson. Alan is a man in his late 50s whose wife has just died in a car crash and his daughter was also injured in the same accident. This leaves Alan in an emotional state and means he has to go and see his daughter, but the two characters do not have a close relationship. Alan is a mysterious character who seems very tense and on edge throughout the film. The audience are supposed to be suspicious of him due to the way he acts towards Grace throughout the film. However, by the end of the film, the audience are supposed to feel a sense of sympathy towards him after the truth is unveiled, as they find out that his suspicious behaviour was to try and protect Grace from the truth. Setting. After we had our ideas for the film in place, we began to come up with ideas for where the film should be set. We needed to find a house for the characters to go and clear out, but we needed this house to fit the horror/thriller genre that we had planned. Luckily, we managed to find the perfect house for this, which was a detached house, which had an isolated feel to it. This fit our story and genre perfectly. We also needed to find a small apartment/flat to be Grace's flat. This needed to be a small, homely flat that would match Grace's personality, but also seem realistic for her to own at her age. We managed to find the right flat that was a perfect size and gave the feel that we wanted. Camera and shots. After we had a rough storyboard put together and we knew where the story would begin and end, myself and the DOP began to make a shot list for the shoot. We knew that we would have to portray the relationship between the characters by the shots that we used. For example, during the two shots of Grace and Alan, we tried to put as much space between the characters as we could so that the audience would capture the awkwardness between the two characters, as they do not share a normal father-daughter relationship. This was sometimes hard to do, however, as we had no access to different lenses, so in some situations we had wished to use a wide-angle lens to make the distance between the two characters seem even greater. Another thing we had to take into account when planning the shots was to make Alan seem mysterious. We did this by using close-ups of Alan's face to show his reactions in more detail. For example, when Alan and Grace enter the house for the first time, when Grace walks into the kitchen, we chose to use a close-up of Alan's face when he locks the door, as he is trying to be subtle and not let Grace see him do this. This makes the audience question his actions and adds to the slow build-up of his character cracking when Grace finds the toy bear later on. Also, just before this shot, we chose to have an establishing shot of the house before the two characters enter it. This is because we wanted to show the audience how isolated the house really is, and this will help to make the build-up in tension between the two characters later in the film more significant, because it is just those two characters. There are no other houses or people around to help Grace. Another thing we had to think about when planning the shots was whether the shot would be more effective as a handheld or a still shot, as the type of shot will have a different effect on the audience. For example, during the scene where Alan accidentally reveals to Grace that she has been to the house before, we decided to do handheld shots as it brought the audience closer to the action, and the movement of the camera makes them feel more involved when Grace is struggling to break free of Alan's grasp. Then on the other hand, for scenes where the action is not as intense, we decided to use still shots. For example, when Alan enters the kitchen to speak to Grace, this scene does not need camera movement as it is just a basic conversation that takes place. Also, it is one of the earlier shots in the house, so it establishes the room they are in. After we had the basic shots down, we moved on to the more important shots that would take place, such as the flashback and the attacking scene. We chose to use shots that would make the audience feel more involved with the action, so that they would have more of an emotional attachment to the characters. For example, during the flashback sequence, there is a shot of the young Grace hitting her sister with a rock. We chose to see this from a low angle so that it is almost from the perspective of her sister. This was done to make the audience feel involved in what was happening. Also, again, we chose to do the same shot for when Grace is beating Alan. This is again to involve the audience, but to also trigger the flashback and help the audience to realise what is happening. Another shot we decided to use during the key sequence is a point of view shot. This is used during the scene where Grace leaves the bathroom and is searching for her dad. This is one of the moments in the film where tension is high, as he does not know where Alan is. So by using the point of view shot, we were trying to get the audience to feel the same emotions of Grace and to feel like they are in her shoes. This again means greater interaction from the audience and will draw them into the action that is taking place. Lighting. For our group, no one was in charge of lighting as we already had too many roles, so we all contributed towards the lighting of the shots. Throughout the shoot, we used red heads and LEDs to light our sets. As camera operator, lighting is important because if the shots are not lit in accordance to the action on the screen, then this will have an effect on how the audience views it, especially as the genre of film we made is a horror/thriller. As the film progressed and the tension grew between the two characters, we tried to make the lighting reflect this by having darker lighting for shots during the more tense scenes. Although sometimes it was hard to do this as we could only film during the day, so for some shots we adjusted the ISO and aperture to let less light into the lens, which gave us the effect we wanted. Evaluation. Overall, as a group, we are very happy with how the film has turned out, and it is very rewarding to see the final product from all of the hard work we have put into the film. Also, to see how the shots came out as camera operator is very rewarding. However, there are also many things that we can see from this film that could be improved for the next film we make as a group, and individually there are many ways I can improve as camera operator.